chair this year. We wanted to take this opportunity quickly to showcase some of our awesome, incredible, hardworking, and talented students by creating this 10 note card set that we wanted to give to you as a little token of appreciation for all that you do and for all the support you give to the art department. So, board members that are not here, I promise we have one for all of you. We'll make sure we'll get them to you, and also all administrators. So thank you so much, and happy holidays.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for all your leadership with that department. Mayor just a minute, you're about to get interrupted to get the mic louder.
Chorus as a class is a lot of fun too, but more than that, it's a stress reliever. And now especially, we can all agree that students are under a lot of stress. And the arts have been a pivotal part in my excitement towards school recently. More than a couple of my friends have said to me that choir is one of the only reasons that they would come to school during remote learning. And myself, it was by far the best part of my day and the part that I would look forward to when we were hybrid. Now, during my freshman year, I was a part of many clubs as well as in the arts. But first, there is actually a class that I would like to talk about, STEM. In freshman year, you could take a non-credit bearing course, or at least my freshman year, called STEM. Math and science teachers would come together during the lunch periods in the blocks, and each day, they would present a different topic for the class to work on. A couple of my friends and I were actually able to win a competition in which we created a prototype for a robotic arm for a Mars rover, and we won a bit of money for that through Krobum. We beat dozens of other teams to reach the finals, and then even then, we beat 2 teams of seniors as freshmen. And I think that it was just a really good class that unfortunately doesn't exist for freshmen to take anymore, but I was seeing if we could try to make that as an actual, if not class, but some type of club for us to do in the future. And another non-club club that I'd like to talk about is Iroquois Reads. It's been around since before our amazing librarian, Mrs. Friedman, has worked here in the high school as a group that meets during homeroom. but over the years, there have been many passionate people as part of our club. Last year and the year before that, we had the senior valedictorians and salutatorians as part of the club. And it exists as a club for people who love to read or don't to come together and talk about books that we've been reading and discuss books that we're reading and recommend them to each other, as well as promote reading in our school. We are planning soon to set up showcases and having contests to promote reading online and in print. This year, a group of friends and I are actually advocating for it to get approved as an official club, because we so far exist as just more of a group activity that we come together. So, thank you for your time, and I hope we can work together to create a better school.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you.
As a reading teacher, I really hope that club happens.
You know, I do have one question regarding the reading club. Do you guys have a teacher advisor at all right now?
Come on back to the mic.
Yeah, so we have Mrs. Friedman, who
Okay.
is advising it now, but she had mentioned that it was something that had existed before she was
Right.
before she came up to the high school.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good. Yeah,
Um,
because I know that's, one of the things you'll need to create a formal club.
Yeah, and that's one thing, make sure you catch up with the administrators in the building, because there are forms for starting new clubs. I also know student experience is one of the strategic intents, one of the task forces, and I know under that student experience one, there was ideas for clubs. Your assistant principal right there, Mrs. Langhauer, was key of that, so catch up with her after. And I think STEM is one of the goals in the high school, so as you talk about the reading, also hit her up for that one, because that's one of the goals, and I want to be talking about something here that might be able to open up some space in the high school to expand the STEM room. So I'm not saying you have to stay, but boy, would it be exciting to hear me speak.
Actually, this morning we actually had it sent in the form for getting it approved as a club. We sent it in, I want to say sometime last week.
Okay.
And this morning I just got new information that apparently it's coming to be seen as for final improvement as above building administration.
Well, that would be to me, so you're already ahead of me, so I'll just be quiet next time.
And as the mom of two former Iroquois Reads kids, it's a great group. It's a really worthwhile thing for them to be doing. And we remember you guys from when you were freshmen in your STEM competition, so good job.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to our board discussion and news worth sharing. So after our November meeting, it became clear that there was some miscommunication and misunderstanding about what happens with our strategic plan once it comes to the board and was approved in November. We had some discussion about two additions that one of the task force wanted to add. And at the November meeting, we did approve the strategic plan as it was presented by the core team in October, and we did not include those two items, rather saying that we wanted to send that back to the core team. And I learned after the fact that the core team role is not clear. So I asked for Betsy from PLC to join us again tonight to help clarify what our next steps are and what we do with our strategic plan and how we start to implement that.
All right. Good evening. How exciting is it to be here in person? In this
Oh, thank you
district
for
that I've
coming,
been
and I'm going to
working with.
text someone I'm texting someone watching you online just to make sure your volume is
Yeah,
good.
okay.
Betsy, you look just like you did on my
In
computer
my little
screen.
box,
Unbelievable.
okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I know I already got to give Alexis a hug because we worked so much together. I feel like, we were old family friends here. So tonight, my goal is to provide you with some clarity around where do we go from here? Like, we have this wonderful plan, now what? So that's what I'm gonna talk about. Maybe I am? There, oh, okay, there we go. So first and foremost, the work that was done by your core team and your task forces is really to be applauded. Amazing work coming together. People look at things through so many different lenses, so when you can come together and reach consensus, it really is a marvelous thing. And when I read through your mission and vision, they are very strong, they are very reflective of your community, and they will start to now appear on everything you do, so that everyone is crystal clear. This is who we are at Iroquois. And then we go into those belief statements, right, that we spent time on, and that really reflected, what do you believe in? And again, these are the things that will start to appear in your buildings, in newsletters, everywhere, with everything that happens, so people know what to expect. And again, you went through all of this in your meeting before, but I just want to talk about now, what do we do with this great stuff? So you have your strategic plan, and that's the blueprint, right? That's giving you the direction now. Then you're going to, Doug and his team, right? Because we've talked about, as an administrative team, your administrative team is lean here in Iroquois, right? So we can't just put extra stuff on people's plates. We now need to figure out how to prioritize what we've said is important, what your stakeholder groups, your administrators, your parents, your students, and how do we balance all this? That work goes to Doug and his team to figure that out and to determine what is it going to look like. Because we have to protect time, we have to develop strong processes and structures, and then we need to figure out, what is that community-based implementation team going to look like? Because again, you've applauded the work of your core team, you've applauded the work of your task forces. That work is done now. Now it's to move to implementation. And in some ways, even though it didn't feel like it during the process, the writing the plan is the easy part. Chuck's going to give me a look right now. That was the easy part. It's now the implementation that becomes so much fun. And again, when you're thinking about your plan, you have the piece that's those strategic intent, those goals, and how we're going to measure them. But that the strategies and the action plans, the action steps are what we are going to implement when and how. And that again is going to become the work of your administrative team led by Doug, is how are we going to implement this work? What makes sense in Iroquois? All right, because they've heard and gathered all that information as we went through this process. And again, what I want you to be thinking about is that this is providing us with structure to develop those systems and processes. I can't say that enough, because you're really just, this is the beacon. This is where we're headed. Now how are we going to get there? So what are those amazing next steps that are going to occur? Well, first, beginning in January or around there, because again, this is a COVID year, so I want to make sure I mention that, because things are not normal as they usually would be.
Right.
But the administrative team is going to come together and start writing those action steps. And for them, this is really crucial. Those action steps become thoughts like when you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Pause for a minute and think about, when I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I have to go get the plate out of the cupboard. I go get the bread out of the bread box. I take out 2 pieces of bread, so on and so forth. They have to break down the steps into that level in order for them to move forward and to know how are they going to hold each other accountable. There is co-accountability here, right? Because we know, I'm picking on Alexis because she's out there in the audience, but we know Alexis still has a job to perform each and every day. Doug has expectations, students have expectations, parents, teachers. she still has to do that. So we don't want this to be an extra. We want it to become part of how we do business. I loved listening to your student talk tonight. I loved, just like Doug, what you were thinking was going through my mind too, that so much of this came through the student experience, right? So you're starting to build things that are going to help our students. When we were working through the plan, so much of it, we said wasn't so much new, but it was enhancing the structures that we had and making sure everyone was very crystal clear on the processes that we go through to get to setting up a club. So that was a perfect one from where I sit. The action steps as they're developed will be shared with the Board of Education. It will be very transparent. Staff, students, parents, everyone should be aware of what we're doing and the why behind it. Because some of this does play into your budget process, right? So there are some things, and again, you can't do everything out of the gate, or Doug will be like, what are we doing, right? And we know that we can't just go out and build the new building, right? There's procedures and processes that need to go into place for what's in the plan. Now, we need to determine a process to plan as appropriate. What that means and what that's getting at is if there are things that we want to revisit, there will be a process that's developed for that. Some districts choose to do that through you talked about having a community-based implementation team. If that's what you do, then whoever serves on that team will be part of the sounding board as things come through to be changed. Doug and his team may come back and say, we're 3 years into this, and there's a change in education, or there's a change in your demographics that occurs overnight, right? That can happen at any time. Then you come together and they talk to you, and you talk as a team about this is what's now occurring in our district, so we need to make a few tweaks to the plan. We never throw out the baby with the bathwater, all right? But we may need to tweak some things as determined by data that we've collected, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but that we've determined through our reports to the Board of Education that there needs to be a few pieces that maybe we missed along the way. But we got to get out of the gate first and get those structures put into place first.
Just real quick there with some of that, with the action steps, that would be included in the individual building goals and as they're moving forward and how they would blend together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And your administrators, as they're working through some of the work, may say, you know what, that needs to be a priority here. And so they talk to you about that in their regular meetings with you. So in buildings and grounds, what a role there is in this, because there's a whole area devoted just to that, right? So we need to make sure that that conversation is constantly occurring to see what needs to take place, what can realistically take place. So then, sorry about that. How we measure. So this is an example of how you start to measure. You put your strategic intents out there, all right? Then you take what's your baseline data that's available. And again, Doug's going to assign who's going to be in charge of gathering the data or what that's going to look like, okay? He's going to figure that out. You're going to look at what's the annual goal. If this is where we want to be in 5 years, how are we going to work as a team to determine what should be the goal year 1, year 2? Because remember, we're talking about SMART goals that are strategic, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and timely. All right, we have to have all of these things in mind as we're looking at what is our goal for each year. And then how are we going to do quarterly checks? Some things it might not make sense to do quarterly. You might do every 6 months. But just a little status check, how are we doing? Again, in the matrix, you may not be addressing all the strategic intents the first year. We know out of the gate, the first thing you're looking at is communication. That's already been determined, that's the first thing that as a collective group and with the board that you agree. So now Doug and his team have to sit and think about, okay, what is this really going to look like? Notice I'm putting a lot of pressure on Doug.
Well, and just to be clear to the public, what you have over there for SI numbers, 1,
Right.
2, and so, are not for our district. This is just an example from another district.
Correct. So one of the things that we will do with PLC as we work with you through that first year of implementation is determining how we're going to measure and color code and report out your results, because you really want it to be easy for everyone to see. So what do we need to work on? What are the goals that we might have significantly missed? What's in process? And that's going to be a lot for the beginning. And then what's accomplished, right? And then you start to celebrate, because one thing we do in education, we don't celebrate enough when we reach a goal. So we need to pause and celebrate the hard work that went not only into developing this plan, but now into the implementation, so that everyone feels a part of that. So important. And so again, this is for those of you who are familiar with Gantt charting, that's what we're doing. We're making this really easy to see. So you make that implementation map, and here you can see it by the month. You can see what's our strategic intent, okay? And you heard from the clubs tonight, and you can see each of the steps out. What are we going to do? And then who's going to be the point person for that? And when I see implementation fail, it's because we don't come back to holding each other that co-accountability of who's going to complete what and by when. But you can see how these are broken out into small pieces so that it's not overwhelming. It's not saying we're going to do everything in September or December or March. We break it up so that it really we can do this work. And again, that's going to be the piece that Doug will do with his team. And I can't say that enough, because as a board, you've now approved the plan, and now you point the fingers at him and say, make this happen. And he'll come back to you and the community and tell you what that's going to look like. And there'll be times when you're going to be so happy with how things are going, and then there's going to be times where there'll be frustration because it's going to take a little time. We're moving a big organization. We're not moving 2 or 3 or 4 people. We're truly moving a big organization. And that's why 3 to 5 years, that's what the research will tell you. That's how long it takes to make change, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. I wish I could tell you it would, but it's not going to. It's going to take time. And again, you're taking some great things that are already in place, and you're moving them from good to great. And that's really to be celebrated as well, because you're not settling for good. You're saying we can do better, we will do better, and we've heard from our kids that we need to do better. And that's what's so wonderful about this. So again, when you start to implement with precision, that step by step, these are some of the pieces that you're going to go through. And again, it's going to be tweaked for the culture of your district, for what works here at Iroquois. Throughout the development of the plan, many times I said, this is Iroquois' plan. This isn't my plan, right? Because this is the plan that you are going to implement. Because we're slowly turning it back to you to now figure out the implementation. And you're really going to keep it very visual and always right out in front of people. We're in the process we'll work with Doug to get what your one-page document's going to look like. That's a great thing to hand somebody when they register in your district. Here it is. You post things, PDFs of things on your website. People can go and get it and grab it, because the more it's out in front of people, the more they see that this is where we're headed. And there's nothing better than to show your seniors, your juniors, your seniors, here's where we're going to be as a district in 5 years, right? Because for many of them, that's when they're going to be establishing their lives and determining, are we staying here or are we going elsewhere? You're helping them be part of the solution. So it really is such a neat process. And this is another one that is so important, and I'm going to tell you for your district, this is crucial, is getting that shared understanding and the common language. Because throughout the process, what I noticed from where I was sitting is that many times you're talking about similar things, but you're not using the common vocabulary. And I see Chuck nodding his head over there, because there are times we get so into the lingo of education that we don't sit and really unpack what does that mean for everyone, and how kids view things, our students who we're here to serve, how our teachers, how our administrators, how our parents. We need to develop those common terms that are used throughout the plan and make sure that everyone has common understanding. That's another key piece. And we want to hold to fidelity of implementation. We want to make sure that when we are considering anything that's a slight variation from the plan, that we're really using that data-driven inquiry process. What is the data telling us? What is it showing us? Why do we need to make a variation? We don't just do it for the sake of doing it. We really go back and look at what did we hear from people? What are our surveys telling us? What are we, because you're going to want to do focus groups again. One of the things to really be thinking of is we heard from the kids, they really want to know about this process. So how are we going to go and share with them, whether it's Doug or Mary Jo or whomever is going to go, Alexis is going to go and talk to them about, here's what our plan states, and we want to make sure you're aware of it, because we made some really good decisions based on what we heard from them. So you want them to know they've been heard. So again, really moving from that jargon and making sure there's common understanding amongst everyone involved. Because working together, you're going to get it right. You don't want elementary teachers seeing it one way, middle school teachers seeing another way, high school another way, community members, depending what groups they represent. You really want to get everyone to see that if we have a collective effort, that's when we're going to enable ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. I know that in 3 to 5 years, we're going to see some real momentum here of moving from good to great. And I know that's important to all of you in this community.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. At this point then, now that the board has approved the plan as it was presented in our October meeting from the core team, it all now falls on Doug and the administrators
Absolutely.
to begin the implementation. Any kinds of recommendations and so on would go to Doug.
Exactly.
And then with his team, he would then determine if that answers the data and moves the strategic plan forward.
Correct.
And he brings that to the board.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry, I would like some clarification on that, Betsy.
Okay, Michelle.
Jane. So I'm curious because when we were talking about this strategic planning process,
Yep.
it's the board's responsibility and to set the direction for the district with the superintendent and his administrators, right? And we brought in the core team, and so we all did that together.
Correct. Collective.
And then the board accepts the strategic plan, and we had an opportunity to review it
Correct.
and make any changes that we wanted. Right?
Well, if after, so you presented it in October, right? And
Yes.
because Dom was here.
Yep.
So at that meeting, if there were concerns, then we should have gone back to the core team before the vote. Once it's voted on and it's accepted, then we move ahead.
So my understanding was the core team was completed with
They made recommendations,
they made recommendations and sent it to the board for approval, right?
correct, from the task force. So that the board chose not to approve it, then we would have looked at that. We would have come back together to determine the why behind that. But I think it was approved, correct?
It was
It was approved.
Okay.
We had, the communications task force had requested some modifications.
Okay. Did it go to all the task force members? Was that all involved?
The communications task force?
Yeah. With
Yes.
Dom. So Dom was aware too? As the facilitator too?
No, because honestly, our strategic intents had been changed from what we thought
Okay,
were coming. And then when the strategic plan was presented to the board,
okay.
it was a little bit different. So so we went to a work
Michelle,
session.
hang on a second, let me clarify, what was presented to us in October wasn't what the task force intended?
Correct.
Okay,
Which is why we were asking for changes.
So what happened, just sitting and observing on them,
okay,
and Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong, the communication task force, the student experience task force, and the facilities task force all sent their recommendations to the core team. The core team reviewed all of those and said, yes, no, modified them, and then because there were representatives
Okay.
from each one of those task force on there,
okay.
and then the core team passed along their final product to
To
the
us. To
The
board.
Board of
Okay.
So
Education.
therefore,
Okay.
between the
That makes sense. That makes
task
sense.
force and the board, there was a review by the core team.
Okay.
Correct. Actually,
I
that
don't
was,
think
that
that's
was a
what
meeting that went
actually-
over, actually, our allotted time. I remember that.
Say that again?
That was our meeting that went over its allotted time, actually, because there was quite a bit of discussion at that meeting.
okay.
Yes. But from that meeting to the presentation at the board in October, the communications team felt very strongly that some of our intent was changed.
Okay,
So that's why the communications team came to a board work session, talked about our concerns, and then at the next meeting, we asked for some modifications. And it was my understanding that the board had the opportunity to look at the strategic plan, because it is ultimately our responsibility, right?
well, together with the community and everyone who served on that core team, as a collaborative
Yes.
effort, you wrote
Yes.
a plan that you now
Yes.
turn over to your superintendent to implement.
Yes.
And you voted on it, it passed, so now that's the plan that the superintendent's working with his team on.
Okay.
And then if there's, with his team, they will determine and present to the board what will be the process if we need to make changes or modifications to the plan that the board adopted.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
So, we no longer have a core team, a
Correct.
task force for communication, a task force for student
Correct.
experience, and a task force for building and grounds. It now all is Doug and his
It's all
team.
with Doug. Yeah, he's trying to write his thank you notes and thank everybody who served on the teams, and then, yeah, that comes to closure. And
Excellent.
now his team is going to implement that.
Yeah, and it's also my understanding is during the course of this, if there's something that needs to be changed because this is a living, breathing document as we go forward, then that would be presented to the board by Doug and his administrative
Correct.
staff.
Correct.
And just for the people hearing, because we heard that once the board adopted the plan, that the different groups were done, I want them also to hear, that doesn't mean they're done, because there will be, as with the action steps, definitely times we are going to be using the community, like communication to the community. You have to use the community to make sure they're being
Correct.
communicated. I need feedback of what they're looking for, so we want them. There will be, like with parents, there will be time with students, there will be time with teachers, there will be time, because it's collective discussion and collaboration. It's not someone saying, oh, this is what I think I should do, which is why we have the surveys to see if we're hitting what they would like, and I need to know what they would like to try to hit it. So don't go away, don't think you're done, you're going to be getting emails, we'll be looking to pull you back in. So all of you out there watching us at home right now, spread the word, text each other. There'll be things happening, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will be happening.
Doug will be
So-
putting those posters around that say, "We need you."
Let me ask this,
Yes.
do you start with the people that have already been on the core team and the task forces, and then broaden it to people who maybe weren't able to be involved, but now want to be involved, or can be involved, their schedules change, or how are you going to be getting people involved?
I would be doing it at the same time. Obviously, the people that have been involved will be the easiest ones to reach because we have active emails, we have group listservs. But that doesn't mean someone who's in one group and wants to switch to a different one, that they can't switch or participate. Because there might be, I'll say for communication from teachers to parents, there could be a parent on that one, but they also want to talk about facilities and what's going to be set up for the future. Well, so the one might be meeting for the month X and the other one's in month Y, so they could be in both. But I do also want to have a differentiation where as many people who want to get involved, that we can get involved, but keeping in mind, I can't have 100 people making one decision.
And I also think that it's really important, and when we come in with Doug to talk about that, so if we're focused on 6.1, we may need 6 people on 6.1, but we need 15 people on 6.4. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's
Right.
even going to be broken out more,
Okay,
not to have committees or groups, task forces to meet for the sake of meeting, but to really get down, get dirty, and get that work done. One of the things we learned during this process was that the times we were meeting really wasn't conducive for the students. So, and we had that conversation. So now, with Doug and his team, we can figure out what time is best to meet with the students and hear from them.
okay.
Can I just ask just speaking, I guess out of concern for the communication group, I wasn't on the communication group, but at our last core team meeting, the communication group, there was discussion with everybody on the core team that communication is, I think we're talking about communication difficulties and we're talking about communication group, but that is critical for rolling out, for example, the next steps, where we are right now, what's happening now. And that team, I felt when we ended had been given like the permission of the core team or the yes, go forward and be that next level group, advisory group. So I think that there are people on that team who felt that we were in the next steps with that. Whoever those recommendations are to, I think that the understanding was because of the work session, the next step then was the board work session. Because the intents weren't the last place the group left it, they had the board work session and asked for those things, thinking that's where that group was supposed to do that. And the feeling now is that the answer from the board was no, because it was approved without them. Okay. So I think we have a lot of people who are very hardworking, very well-meaning, very much want to be involved in helping the district. And there is a feeling that it's like we're tripping. I think we did, obviously we all saw we had a letter, but we're tripping over ourselves in something we've identified that we need help and support with. So if the answer is not no, because we do also keep saying this is living, breathing, and can be add things, then I guess because when I'm listening to the next steps that we just talked about, it seems like this group is a community implementation team that I think thought they had the go ahead. And if that's too early because the next step is Doug, how does this team then go meet with Doug about I guess what happens? I don't want to lose the momentum.
Right. And
of
you
the
guys,
hard
and you
work.
were clear of that during the process, and we know that many times during the process, the passion of the group sometimes got in our way, right? Because we needed to make sure there was clear, consistent communication, just like you're saying, Sharon. So I agree with you, absolutely.
Right. So I guess what do we do now? No, hearing the next steps, okay, it's going to Doug. So does that group not exist? Which I think is a missed opportunity for us.
I can answer that honestly. Doug and his team have to determine what will that next step be to bring in who they're going to bring in, right? Like, what is that going to look like? Because
I do think at that one core team meeting, we gave the wrong.
Okay.
We may have sent the wrong message to that group.
And maybe that was me, I don't know. But whatever it was, that was never the intent because it always goes to the superintendent. I thought I was clear about that, but maybe I wasn't. Because
And I don't want them to feel the board doesn't want that help and support, or that PLC, or that Doug doesn't want to see what people recommend.
Because this is
Right.
collective, but we have to make sure it works within the structures, and that's why that first part of determining the structures and the systems moving forward is so key.
And
So-
that's right, the one
sorry.
thing, go ahead,
Just to-
sorry.
Sorry, just to be clear, we did ask, the communications team did ask Doug, can we continue our work? And you said yes. So now I'm confused.
The question I heard for that plan, I think the whole board heard, because it came from the whole board, was can we get together to meet to discuss how it should be communicated out, whether it should be the newspaper, printed in newspapers, and that's what the yes was for?
That is correct. That was what we were talking about in our October meeting. I think it was Michelle specifically said, can the task force continue our work?
Yes.
And we said yes to that.
And that is,
Correct.
and they gave a document, and that's exactly, actually, I gave a report in a Friday memo of the steps from that plan. It sits right on my desk of where we're going. We've modified the website. Dan, he's distributes stuff for us, has been going around to the different, post offices, town halls, businesses, dropping off the pamphlets, the one-page document with the QR code, the Connect Ed message, the emails to the staff. I'm sorry, I don't have
Letter
the
to
list
the
in
editor.
front of me.
There was a letter to
The editor. Those are all the different steps so that group, if they're listening, hears that all those suggestions we're following through on.
Good. And have you had a chance to unpack the entire plan with all of your staff, too? To really delve into it?
Actually, not with the staff, because I'm
Right.
working through it right now with administrators.
Correct.
But I'm asking, maybe we can add another superintendent's day. I would love to look at our teacher in the audience, and she's giggling under her mask, I hope, so that we can go through with the plan, because like what you're saying, clear communication. And that was actually one of the things, and I think it was actually Alexis who's in this room said to me, is this would be a very important piece, going back to what you said a few minutes ago, about a common language and a common
Correct.
understanding, so everyone knows where we're going. So right now, I'm working through it with the administrators. We're
Perfect.
working on it every week. We have a meeting every Tuesday, and it's a set item on the agenda to work through. And then, like, I'm gonna pick on Alexis again, because she's here, that when it gets to student experience, I always refer, well, would you like to say here? Why don't you start? Well, I haven't said that one yet. That'll be next week. What would you like to start with about that one?
But I think that's important, Doug, because, and my point is that we want to make sure everybody internally understands what's in that plan, so that if a parent, talk about communication, there's nothing worse than being a teacher and having a parent come up to you and say, hey, you got this great plan going on, and I want to talk to you about that student experience, and the teacher's like, what in heaven's name? You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that we even have clear communication within the organization, and that takes time, right? Like, that's why we decided we were going to move slow to move fast, and that's going to be my biggest caution that I give all of you. Having done this in multiple districts, what is better is to pause and be really solid in your foundation of communication before you get out there too fast and you forget a group. I can't say that enough, because, again, your teachers in the trenches, there's nothing worse than being asked a question that you don't know, and other people have more information than you do. It really makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think we spent, I'm looking at Alexis again, because she was there, but I think we spent about 2 meetings just going over the vision, the mission, and the belief statements, making sure that we understood the intent, because there were multiple administrators there, so all the administrators understood the intent from the core team that the board adopted from those conversations of what those 3 things meant.
Absolutely, and that takes time, because when you think about the people, and I think about Sharon and Michelle and Chuck, who were so knee-deep in it and have such a different understanding even than you, Jane, and you, Robert, and others, because you haven't been through some of those conversations. So we do have to, as hard as it is, take that pause and make sure that everybody understands the language that we chose and the why behind it. That is going to be my parting advice to all of you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else need to do any other discussion during our board discussion and news worth sharing? Anybody have anything?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
One of the communication team members asked me to read a letter.
Okay, Michelle, if
Yep.
it's not from you, I feel like that should be done under the recognition of guests, which is coming up, so.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm not saying you can't read it, I'm saying let's do that during recognition of guests.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess in the interest of clarity, I just want to make sure, and again, I'm not on the communications group, but if I was, would I then be now paused and waiting to hear if Doug would like us to come back and meet? Or Doug, I guess that's what I would want to know. If I was on the communications team watching this right now, what do you want me to know?
So I would say to all the task force, not just communication, also for student experience facilities, that they're on pause right now as it's unpacked with the administrators.
Okay.
They will be invited back if they wish to come back in at different aspects of it as it's unpacked. But I also want special for the communication, I would like them to hear their suggestions of how to put it out that was presented to the board at the work session, that the board said that they liked those ways of getting it out, that most of them are done. I'm trying to think of, I might know there's one that might not be right now, so there's still one or two to accomplish that we're working on. So there'll be the emails going out, we just have to unpack it first with the administration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else for board discussion? All right, that moves us to the superintendent's report.
So the first item is opportunity to purchase building. And this actually does kind of parallel conversations that happened during facilities with the strategic plan, because there was the discussion of district-wide spaces and what to do, and there were comments that were made during it. And it's nothing new to the district, because we're always looking of where things would fit. What do we have space for? How do we take care of items we already have? And the Alma Fire Company came to me, the chief, and said that they were looking to sell the fire hall across the road from the school. It has a very nice building on it that's in great shape. It is relatively new. And when I say relatively new, I'll say 5 years. I could be off by a year or two. And so with that, the strategic plan discussed district-wide spaces and provide locations for a new learning environment. And when we were looking at the campus, we know there were some blockers on it. They're the 1960s buildings and grounds buildings are in the way of multiple different ideas that were coming at that. So therefore, it was really a great opportunity that became available. And so the Alma Firehouse is next to the school, is available to be purchased by the school. So here's some short-term goals that would happen with it quickly if that was to happen. It would allow for centralization of buildings and grounds. So what would that mean? Well, there's the 1960 temporary structures. And why I call them temporary structures, they were brought in and I believe it was the 1960s, because that's what was told to me. And they were trailers. And over the years, they put wood around them and tried to make them look better, put a roof on them. But they were really temporary structures that have been here for 60 years.
I don't know if it was quite but
70s?
Those, they were originally put there. They were portable classrooms, and that's what they were utilized for, at least during my tenure here at Iroquois.
So by having this purchase across the road, what that does is allows for the removal of those, which really increases efficiency for plowing. Not a big deal. But it also, what it does is it creates additional access to the back fields. Again, not a great deal, but good. But what it also does is allows for relocation of back office operations. What that does, it provides, that came from the strategic plan about student experience, and you heard tonight, ironically, about STEM. By moving some back office operations, there are some rooms that would be very nice for STEM that, due to their spacing locations, would allow for that program to develop immediately. So that would be great. In fact, I happened to be over talking to the technology teacher in the high school about saws, of all things, and he mentioned how more space would be nice, and this is what he could utilize it for, and this is what his vision was. And right now, he's working on his vision for the program, because I really wanted to see the implementation and everything with that before moving forward, because I like to see the whole experience. What else it does is allows for care and maintenance, because right now, we have a lot of equipment that sits outside, so it's exposed to the weather. By bringing it inside, being able to maintain it and take care of it in conditions, that would be very helpful to protect the investment for the taxpayers. Safety, this was one that when I was asking the administrators about it, they said, when we have to evacuate, it's a slower process, because on the main campus, we do have the Boys and Girls Club, we have the bus garage, but now if we have the fire hall, that is another location we can go to. What delays it now is because there's equipment in there, so people would have to come from off campus, remove the equipment, where now it's all internal. So that's a huge safety piece for evacuation of students. Long term, what it does is it reorganizes how the schools are set, where the things are, and so therefore it opens areas for goals set by the facility teams coming in, where there could be expansions. There's different areas that have come about in different surveys by the public. We would like to have this type of facility, or like to have a change for this. It opens areas for that by moving those buildings and grounds buildings, those older ones from the 70s, we'll say now. That allows for an area to be expanded in there for different rooms, also allows for another connection between the high school, the middle school. It opens back areas off where there's more buildings blocking space by the middle school, so it opens those two areas. And this, why is that? Because that is really for the students then. It's opening opportunities to the students for the future. This is what now they can have, and it also offers opportunities for the community, because if they're looking to have the connection between the two, which is, and being welcoming coming here, which is also in the strategic plan, that that can happen too. Also allows for transportation. If something was to happen in the transportation building, because it's getting old, it has additional spaces in there where we could be using for that, because eventually that building is going to need work to it. So it increases the land, the space, and it really does it. If you look at the cost for building, for a district to build a building rather than purchase it, it's much more efficient in doing it this way for the taxpayers. So for those reasons, going to be moving, I don't want to say going to be moving forward, have talked to the company, have worked with it, and then as part of the budget process, because this does need a voter's vote to approve, it's just not something the board can do. The board would have to adopt the resolution to go to the voters in May, and therefore we'd be moving forward. I'm presenting this out to the public now, so if they have questions, they can email me, call me, they could call John, they can have discussions with it. So therefore it's very open and transparent of what we're looking to do and why. Any questions from the board? I think, let's see if there's any more on the next page. Nope, that was it. It sits on approximately 6 acres. Yeah, it is quite a little bit of land, and we already own the land next to it, 11 acres, so that would give us that 17 acres over there of a nice, it would be a nice area where future things could be, even beyond my tenure here as superintendent, really is looking future focused of what could be done for the district. Yes, that's correct. Yep, moving right down the line. And the Boys and Girls Club, like I say, is a great partnership where then we can work with them too, which takes care of, Elma, Marilla, and Wales. They all would benefit from it. It wouldn't just be one group. Questions? So we'll be giving more detailed information on it. So we'll get the square footage of the building, about the 6 acres, and that will be in presentations as we go forward with the budget. And we'll even have some probably in January, even if we're not doing anything with the budget in January.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What will be included in the resolution that the people have to vote on?
It would be a standalone resolution just for that. Is that what you're asking? Like, would there be other things in the resolution?
And people told about the expense, right? I mean,
Oh, definitely. That has to be there. I want to get that out in January. So right now people are starting to think about it. And then the dollar cost. And so then people could even talk about that. It is by no ways, we're talking May. So I have January, February, March, April. I have 4 months to answer any question anyone in the public has on it.
and how does that money get allocated from where?
I'm going to turn to John, but that would be coming from what I would say would normally go into the capital reserve, because this would be going from a building, rather than us having to build a building, to actually just purchasing it completed. You gotta use your mic, John, you gotta turn it on.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, we have time to pick different ways we could access a capital reserve or different things like that, but I think we will have available fund balance to pay for that at the conclusion of this year.
Yeah.
No tax impact.
Correct,
right?
yep, you
Correct.
took the words right out of my mouth. I am not looking to increase taxes for it. I am looking to use it within what we have collected. Just like we did when I was actually here when we purchased the 11 acres, and there was no tax impact for that, I would do it exactly the same way.
And I think the resolution will have to clearly state how we will fund that, right?
Great question. Other questions? Okay. Next thing I have to talk about is COVID update, and I know some board members had questions on this, so if I don't answer your question, be sure, or if I trigger one, be sure to ask me. So by building, that's a question again I've got from different people. Alma, this is since the beginning of the year until Monday. I don't have this week's in there. This week we only have 8 new students. I don't even want to pretend to know where they came from, but I want to say there's like 4 from the high school, 1 from Wales, that's 5 of them, 1 from the middle school, so that's about this week. But anyways, as of Monday, elementary primary had 14, Marilla primary had 26, Wales primary had 9, the middle school had 46, and the high school had 26, and there were 8 others, and what I would call with others would be like transportation, buildings and grounds, central office. Okay? Of those people, the people got quarantined. So I went back and went through all the stuff to make sure I had these numbers. We have quarantined 234 people, and hopefully I did that math in my head correct, and 173 of those were unvaccinated, and 61 were vaccinated. Now, when I say quarantined a vaccinated person, they didn't have to stay home quarantined. They were just in the close contact, because vaccinated people don't have to stay home for the 10 days. So the 173 people that were unvaccinated had to quarantine at home for 10 days because of being in close contact. And how I really look at school to see how things are happening here, because I know people have different activities. Some people really come to school, go home. Other people have multiple other activities that they go to. Some people do school activities that are their choice to do, like athletics, things after school, clubs, arts, and so they do those. So those are parent choice activities, and other people would just do school required activities. With that, there was one transmission that I knew of before Monday, but just this week, I'll say in the last day, that I found 2 more that I actually think happened at an activity. So I think we're up to 3 transmissions right now that I would definitely equate to it. Are there other ones that could possibly have happened? Yes. How do I look at it to determine if I think, and this is me thinking, Doug, superintendent, went to educational school, not medical school. How I look at it for transmission is I work with the nurses and I say, all right, Doug had COVID and Jane was close and she was quarantined. During her quarantine period with the close contact, did Jane get COVID? So I look at the close contacts and see if people on the close contact list became positive for COVID. And if the answer is yes, I would include them as a case of transmission within the school. If I say no, they didn't, then that would, they weren't in that circle, there was someone new. I did find a lot of cases that family members had COVID, brothers and sisters had COVID. So if a brother and a sister had COVID, even though they might have rode the bus together, I did not include that as transmission within the school, just to be clear for everyone. Then I also compare that with what are other schools doing. So how safe is Iroquois compared to other schools? With information that has been publicly disseminated through the council, the Erie County Superintendents, that we're saying we're around 2% in schools. So that's what we as superintendents put together based on the data we have in our schools. The Erie County might say something different, which is absolutely fine, but this is how we're looking at it and doing it. So with that, we can get into different, are there any questions about that, about the numbers and transmission in school? Before I go on? Best practices. So what are we doing? What are best practices? Really, I think one of the best practices is to follow, we follow recommendations from the Department of Health. They're the agency that's put in place to say, here is what is important. Not only is it we just are choosing to follow them, these are requirements for us to follow. So we are following their requirements and talking to other schools and seeing what they're doing. So these are set by Erie and New York State Department of Health. Everyone follows them. So what I think would be a great practice is everyone would actually follow them. We do have to go around and spend time with different people of all ages, reminding them, please pull your mask up. I was at the basketball game last night. People would walk by, please pull your mask up, put your mask up. And everyone was for me, everyone was very compliant. They put it up, they said okay, they smiled and took care of that. And it'd be nice not to have to say that. Some of the best practices I think are masking and spacing because this is what the Department of Health says prevents the transmission. Now the whole question is how much spacing can you create in a school? And they came up with different distances, but in all of their documents, they said the most important thing is for schools to be open for in-person instruction because of all the mental health issues. So any number they have can be modified in order to have schools in session. But we at Iroquois, for the greatest extent, because there are always exceptions to anything when you're an organization this large, is the 3 feet when you have a mask and when you're eating the 6 feet. We do have trouble with the 6 feet spacing and eating in the primary buildings, and they're constantly looking at that, looking to modify that, looking for opportunities to make that better. So let's see. So other than mask, the next most, actually I would say this is the first most important thing, is if you have symptoms, don't come to school, don't come to work, go get tested. I know it's a pain because we're going through the cold and flu season, but you need to go get tested to make sure it's correct. I hear some people say, oh, I have this every year at this time. Okay, that's fine. There's actually a clause in there from the New York State that says if you have this every year, go to your doctor, get a note, and then we can take that into account. It's not just by your word, although I do believe you, we need the doctor's note. Let's see, and important to get all tested. All of these required need to be followed. And I shouldn't have to need people watching you. These are just what you do. We actually, not only do the parents are supposed to do the self-check at home, we do a second one here at school to make sure that everyone's following it and doing the right thing. That's how important I really feel that is. We do 2 of them. Let's see.
Can I ask a question?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Are we repeatedly letting people know that students can be tested in Erie County for free and where they call to get the number to go for a test?
I believe it's out there and I believe it's repeated consecutively.
I'm just finding that a lot of, just in conversations with people don't pay attention to that number or to that fact until you need it. So I feel like it's just one of those things that should be over and over again for people. This is the number to call. They answer very quickly. They let people in the things that I've heard that it's the same day. It's very easy to do, and that people don't have to go to their doctors to do that. That there's provided by the county. I just feel like it's something we should keep repeating to people.
One group I found works well. It's in Orchard Park. Is MedLab. A lot of people tell me that's great. They get in there within the same day. I know with the number of people having COVID now, it might be a little slower than when I was last talking to them. I'm always looking for something in my Monday message. I will include that in this Monday message coming up. And on the website, for all of you listening now or looking at the recording, on the district website, you go to the COVID and you go over to the left down the column, and there's one that says Erie County something or another. I'd have to look it up to be quite, but basically it says, here's places to go get tested. You open it up and there's MedLab, Erie County phone number, Walgreens, Rite Aid. The only thing that's not in there is your doctor's number. So those are all locations that was put out by Erie County. So I don't expect you to remember the number. Remember, Iroquois website, COVID page on the left-hand side, read the one. Should be common sense. If it's not the first one, it'll be your second one.
And it's free testing.
I don't want to say it's free. Some of them are free, some of them might charge, but that's why call ahead and ask them.
If you call that Erie County number, they'll send you
Yep,
to a
call
free.
Erie County. That's the one I've always heard is free.
Yeah.
MedLab is free and you can schedule online too.
Okay, so great information to get out today. 2 daily checks. Another thing that we really worked on, Buildings and Grounds worked on, is the recirculation of air. So we have the univents in the room. Minimally, we're recirculating the air in every room 3 times. We also have the device in there that helps break down any COVID or any other virus that's in there. We're doing the nightly disinfectants. We have the daily disinfectants available for teachers to use with the sprays. All the MDS sheets are on the website because I know some parents at the beginning of this year asked me about them. But again, I think it really comes back to what I learned in kindergarten: wash my hands. You know, they still say that's one of the best ways to help prevent it. I don't quite get that with the airborne, but that is what all the medical professionals say, and you look in all the documentation. Let's see. The other thing is Erie County states that vaccination is also one of the best practices. So you see that on all the advertisements and everything about getting vaccinated. And you heard the numbers of how many people were close contact, unvaccinated versus vaccinated earlier. What we've been doing recently is the test to stay. We talked about this last time. And with the test to stay, that was one where the superintendent's seen this low close contact, students not being in school. And Erie County is actually moved forward with it with conversations. And they're doing a pilot at one of the Erie County schools. And with that, I saw in the newspaper today, and I read it, it said 22 students tested, 20 students found negative and could stay in school. So which will be really interesting with this data coming back to see how many people are negative with close contact, because there could be some that are asymptomatic. This will pick up any asymptomatic student or teacher or anyone in close contact. And for that, you can see it. Now, remember, again, these are the unvaccinated people, because the vaccinated people don't need to quarantine. And I know that creates concerns in some circles, because if there are the breakthrough transmissions, should that be different? And that's really an Erie County question and concern that please take to Erie County or New York State Department of Health. 100% say in school, asymptomatic. So there were some questions, and I did get an email that I saw about just trying to clarify a few things from last time. And it was Erie County, it was about quarantining and how long, and what's the district advocating for that? What I advocate is follow the Department of Health and what their regulations are, and that's what we need to be at, and that's what we follow. Erie County Department of Health, make sure everyone hears it. I did put it in one of my Monday messages. Change the quarantine, that if you get tested, if you're in close contact, meaning you're not positive for COVID, these are people that are close contact, not the person with COVID. If you get tested between 5 and 7 days within the quarantine period and you're negative, you can come back to school on the 8th day. That means one test between the 5th and 7th day of being in quarantine. And I believe they have that range, because sometimes places can get it done quickly, other times it takes a day or two. New York State Department of Health still states that all close contact, vaccinated or non-vaccinated, after exposure should get tested within the 3 to 5 days. So therefore, at the school, what we do is, again, if I have COVID, Jane's there, let's pretend she's vaccinated. She should get tested. She would know that she was close contact because the nurse would call her. Charlie, what were you, vaccinated or unvaccinated? Charlie's unvaccinated. I really don't know what either one of them are, but if he was the unvaccinated one, he would be at home, and he should get tested. He does it at day 5. He's negative. He can come back on day 8, and everything works out well. Let's see. So, and I, before you guys start asking me questions, if you have any, I want to thank the board for their continued support in following the Department of Health requirements. That's what school districts are doing. We're not out on a limb. We're not doing anything different than anyone else, because that's the people, and thank you for your support, because it's a requirement. So I don't know if I should be thanking you for a requirement, but I do appreciate the support. I know the administrators do, because this is to help provide the safest and healthiest environment for students and staff. I continue to attend, continuous meetings. They seem unending. Every meeting I'm at, I feel like I'm talking about COVID. you know, and what am I looking for at those? Funding, because if we're doing the test to stay, who's paying for those test kits? So I'm looking for funding to help with that. Looking to the different grants the Department of Health got, trying to ask them, just can that funding flow through to schools for nursing and testing and anything else we might do here? And also logistical help. What can they do in help supporting in the documentation and working through? And there are 2 people that I work with at the Erie County Department of Health that are on the school team that I call. They're a great resource. I called them today, this morning, within an hour. They had gone through Department of Health, got the answer to my question. We could get back to the parent, had everything all cleaned up within an hour, and the nurse got back to the parent. So they for me, the 2 that I am dealing with, thank you to them. They're probably, I know they're not listening unless they're really having a boring night. But I really do appreciate them. So does anyone have any questions?
The program in the other school district for the test to stay, did the county say how long the duration is going to be for that testing period?
I have not heard how long, and I also did not hear how they picked the school.
Yeah, I mean, that's immaterial. I'm more interested in, you know, how long are they going to, you know, do the test to stay? How long is it going to take them to compile the data and analyze it and then get some kind of guidance out to the other school districts?
And maybe that was something I missed. I'm going to see if I can find that information, because now you really piqued my interest too. But I mean, all in all here, when I compare to other schools, I think we're doing very well. And
Yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
So as far as best practices go, I'm sure that you've looked at our different buildings. It seems like there's a wide range of, like among the primaries, there's some different results, and then between the middles and high school, there are different results. I'm just curious as to if the buildings are looking at what we're doing within the district. It's nice to know what the county's happening and the federal government and the state, you know, but we only have control over so much.
Correct.
And, you know, if one building seems to be having better luck, then I'm just curious if we've looked at that.
Yeah, the one
Can
for
I-
me, whoops, go
Can I
ahead.
jump in, like, to piggyback off of what Michelle's asking? You said that it looks like we have 3 in-school transmissions. Were they all in the same building? Were they in different buildings?
They were in different buildings. So the one from the previous was at a primary building, which is not even the highest primary building. And the other 2 were both in a secondary building that just happened this week, and they were in the same situation. So it was the same person who had positive COVID, had the 2 close contacts, so it was really like 3 people that one of them was positive first and the other 2 picked it up. I don't know which one was first because of all the timings, and it could be wrong. You know, I could be wrong with that, but from my belief of really seeing it, the dates and where they were, I think it would have happened at a school event. Looking at different buildings, getting back to Michelle's question. So when I look at the different ones, the middle school is the highest building with 46. And that really started off right within the first couple of weeks where they had, I'll say like 15 of them. And then in there, we were really looking at lunches and you know, we didn't see it transferring in schools, but with the high numbers, we changed lunches immediately, spacing them out more because that's where they didn't have the masks, just in case it kept growing in there to try to make sure it didn't transfer in here. We haven't had any transference there. And since that time, not of anything we did, I just think it just changed. The only thing I could come up with, thinking logically about it as a superintendent again, not a medical professional, is about that time started, there seemed to be a lot more outside leagues going on for students, that maybe it was happening at them, but I find that hard to say because that would all be Iroquois students, the same ones in school. So I don't really know a reason. That's the only thing I could see that might have been different at that age group. And also that age group, I believe has, and I don't know the numbers, but it's a belief, not a fact. So this is a belief. Don't go say it's right. It's just my belief that there's less individuals vaccinated at that level than at the high school level, which is why it caused a change there. But it's really seemed to stabilize between the two of them now. Marilla, that's an interesting, why is it different than the other primaries? Because Marilla's the 26th and EP's at 14 and 9. And really, I looked at grade levels, busing. Were they happening like at the same grade levels? There were some, but it wasn't anything that stood out different from anywhere else. And it wasn't people next to each other. It wasn't people on buses. I did see different families there. And last year, they seemed to have a few more too. So, and I'm not saying anyone in Marilla does anything different. I'm talking to someone today about this and trying to figure it out. Marilla does pull from a lot more areas than other buildings. So they were thinking maybe just because of the geographic range it pulls from, that might have had something to do with it. I look at, I look on the website from Erie County Department of Health of the town and cases in the town, and the town is not extremely high compared to other towns. So I don't know. I wish I had an answer. We're searching, trying to find things. I did talk, to some of them about, going back, revisiting with teachers about spacing, going through, looking at that. But I'm not seeing the transmission in the building. So again, I'm trying to guess what's happening outside the building. But Michelle, you're absolutely right. We do look in the building and seeing if there's something we could do better in there too.
I have a question. Trying to be proactive on this. I saw on the evening news about a week and a half ago that there was a school in Pennsylvania that was linked up with a pharmacy, and they offered to, well, what they did is they emailed all households and asked them if they would be interested in getting vaccinated, and if they were, it was going to be held in the gymnasium at the school, but it was all going to be done through the parents signing up through the pharmacy website, or possibly if we linked up with Erie County, in order to get teachers and students vaccinated, to be proactive on this, like the old days when you used to come to school and you would get a lot of your vaccines right at the school. That would be proactive. And then I have the second question, I'll just throw this one out there too, is when you hear of a positive COVID case, do you call the student's household and ask them if they're vaccinated? Or like what I did when my daughter Tiffany got her double vaccine is I emailed a copy to the nurse at Iroquois, and I emailed a copy to the Ormsby program office where she is also attending. So those are the two questions. Will we go proactive in possibly hosting a vaccine clinic at our school? Like I guess they did it at one of the Buffalo schools already. And this way we're not liable. We're just having a place to hold it. And in Erie County or whoever else would be the ones providing the vaccines. And then this way it would be proactive, because it seems like the way it is now, so all we do is we're just going around and round and round in circles with this COVID. And when will it end? I don't know, because I know the way they're talking about it on the radio is they're hoping that a certain percentage of the population gets vaccinated. Are we doing the same thing at our school to be proactive?
So to answer your question, first I'll start with that percentage. It used to be, I think, around 70% they were looking to get. A few months ago, New York State, the governor said they're looking to get to 90% vaccinated for herd immunity. I'm not sure what caused the change in the numbers. I would hope it would be data. In terms of calling parents, every single parent, every single child that we find out is positive. Usually it's a parent calling in and reporting it to us because they've gone and got tested because they kept their child home. There are cases where we've sent a child home and then they call in and say, yep, they got tested, they're positive, and the nurses do talk about vaccination with them. That's one of the things usually they can report back if they're vaccinated or not. More importantly, we look to see if the close contacts are vaccinated, because that has to do with their quarantine period, so that is a conversation that happens. You asked about linking up with a pharmacy for having vaccines here at school. Last year, I put out a survey from the district to see if anyone would be interested in that. Almost nobody signed up for it or was interested in it. And this year, I pushed out a survey from Erie County. We're partnering with Erie County where they would come in and have it at the school. And Erie County did not come back. They didn't give me the data. I did ask them for the data. They did not provide it to me. And about how many people would be interested in the Iroquois community, but they did not express an interest with linking up and doing that. So my assumption would be that's based on the data of people interested. I do know that there are vaccination clinics close. There is one, I believe it's every Thursday at Alma Meadows. That is very close for them to come in, so we don't even need it at the school. Go to Alma Meadows, if you need to take the day off, take the day off if you'd like to get it, and you can go there and get one. And I believe you can sign up online for that one, so that's really close for people to go to the main campus. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to, it seems like a timely time to talk about this, that our board we're very curious. We ask lots of questions. We want to get this information. We want to talk about best practices, but we also do get that feedback and, letters from our community, emails from our community. And, we did receive one that was kind of asking about the board's discussions about this. I think it's just a good time for us to clarify that we do not have a board official, we don't have an official position on what are the best practices. As you said, we are not medical doctors. We are not making these decisions. That we don't vote on some of these things. Our role and our job is to oversee that Doug is using the best practices to make these decisions, that Doug is up to date on this, that Doug is using the reliable sources and following up and, keeping current on that. And a lot of this is, courtesy reporting back to the board on what is the most current in a situation that is really important to all of us. So, I think it would be very easy for people to see and to, these conversations to go one way or the other. But our job as a board is to ensure that Doug is following that advice and keeping up with it, because that's what part of the job that he is hired to do. And the board has continued to be, supportive of what he's doing and the involvement that you've had in many, committees, the contact you've had with other superintendents, keeping on top of ever-changing information and news. So I think that, I just want to clarify that with the community.
I actually, there's something about the way you worded that, Sharon, that I want to make sure that it's clear. The board does actually have a position. The position is to support the superintendent and to follow the mandates that are coming from our state and local health departments.
Right, I'm sorry. So, we don't have a position on what the mandate should be.
Okay. That is
true. We do not have a position.
That is true.
Because we are not doctors on what the mandate should be. Our position is to ensure that Doug is updated on those and that he's following those mandates. Yeah.
Right. So just to clarify, the board does have a position, and it is to support Doug and to follow the mandates and guidelines from the state and local health departments.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, and we're going to keep doing everything we can and staying up with the updates, and I'll keep informing the board throughout, every week of any change, and then the whole entire community, every board meeting, and Monday messages too. The next thing that's on the list is staffing. So I did talk about it last time and talked about staffing, and it seemed I gave the impression that COVID was causing the big problem with staffing. I mean, it does have an impact when people are sick and out, but really the staffing issue is just we don't have enough there aren't a lot of people applying to be a substitute here. When we're hiring certain positions, we used to get 60, 70 applications, and that's not happening today, and it's not unique to Iroquois in talking to other school districts. Monday night, I was talking to a couple personnel directors from other districts about this. And if you just drive around business areas, you will see the help wanted signs up. So it's not even unique to the school industry. What do I look to do this? And I really think this is part of the mission of the school, of all schools, is to educate students so that when they graduate, they are not only in a position with knowledge to go out and be prepared to be in the workforce, but they also have the interest to be in the workforce. And this is what we have now. Because they're graduating now, how soon will they be ready when the need is now, especially in the educational field, where you have to go through to get your bachelor's and master's degrees? That would take a long time. And this is something where people have to say, even with everything going on, I do believe education is a great field of study to go into. You can go to your interest of what you like. You can focus on that. There's opportunities to change that through other degrees as you go through your career, because I know with this generation coming through, they do change positions, and there's opportunities. So I personally think it's a great way to go. So I wanted to clear up a little bit of that with staffing and what the concern is, and we're going to keep working on that, but it's kind of hard because everyone's facing that now, and I don't see any quick solution. Any questions on that? Board docs is the last thing to talk about, and I'll say quickly, and really, I'm going to come back to strategic plan. I'm going to love this, the strategic plan, because there are so many things we're doing with that, and we can tie it in. And this is with communication, because what it will create with this program, and I'll let John and Nora, if they want to talk a little bit about this afterwards, talk about it. But it really creates an easy place for the community to search in board minutes. I want to know the topic of whatever, they can type it in a search, they go through and do it. The access is easy for documents for meetings at the night. So therefore, people are able to go and find it. One-stop shopping, we'll call it, for board agenda, board meetings, and topics the board discussed. John?
Yeah, just building on that, we were talking about transparency and accessibility of information for not only the board members here and administration, but parents, staff, students themselves, when they want to go through that policy manual. I've done it myself to try and find something in that policy manual right now. It's a few hundred pages. It's very difficult to find what you're looking for. The program we're talking about using is Board Docs. It's probably majority of the school districts in Erie County are using it now. It's really a place to house, organize, access information through a school district. Policy will be something that we can immediately load on. This is all supported through Erie One BOCES, who does our policy work now. So that all the changes will happen immediately. When the board approves a change in a policy, it'll be updated, put on our website, and we can search if you're a parent at home wanting to know what's our policy on vaping at the school. You can search that word, find all the different areas of policy that address vaping. So there's definitely a huge benefit for anyone in the district or residents of the district. As far as the board agendas and minutes, that's one where once we start this program, we'll be building that history in that system starting at a certain point, probably February or March when we start using it. We will still have to go back and use our old documents for past history of board meetings. But in the future, again, you can go through and search board meeting resignations and find everything that's taken place, search keywords and different things and really find information, because right now it is very difficult to go through board meeting minutes and try and find something you're looking for. You really have to pretty much hunt and peck yourself and dig far back and have a good memory, basically. So I think it's been a great benefit for the district going forward.
And this does come from recommendation from a lot of neighboring districts that are already using it. I'll even say majority. Is that right? No, yeah, no, it's not in our head, yes. Any questions about that? Then quick recognitions. Congratulations to the fall teams, boys cross country. And what I like about these is student athlete. So here are averages for the teams as a collective group. What are their grade averages? Boys varsity cross country, 98. Girls varsity cross country, 97. Varsity field hockey, 94. Boys varsity golf, 93, girls varsity soccer. 97, boys varsity soccer. 95, girls varsity swimming. 96, girls varsity tennis. 96, girls varsity volleyball. 97, boys varsity volleyball. 92, football. 93, and varsity cheer, and that was varsity football. Varsity cheer would have been 94, so congratulations to all those teams. One year I'm hoping to see 100. That would be. We did get an email of a letter of appreciation from the EMW football and cheerleading. Just trying to do it quickly, but give it due justice, and it's to the board members. The annual banquet was on December 4th. EMW Football Cheerleading Executive Board, along with its board of directors, coaches, families, athletes, would like to extend our sincere gratitude for the continued support for our program within the Iroquois system. Truly appreciative of continuing us access to the school property to host our practices and events. We understand the careful consideration that had to be taken when allowing outside groups to enter facilities after school hours, and by allowing the EMW football and cheerleading organization to utilize space within your schools. We are able to provide a little bit of normalcy that so many of our children have been missing over the last 2 years. Access to safe practice environment. Tradition our EMW cheerleaders look forward to is cheering with the Iroquois cheerleaders at halftime of the homecoming game. It's by far their favorite thing to do each season. The banquet is a celebration for the athletes of our program. Each and every one of them have demonstrated great work ethic and sense of teamwork. We would like to commend the hardworking custodians. So this is a very important part. We would like to commend the hardworking custodians at the Iroquois district, especially the the middle school and the high school. They go above and beyond and have nothing but kind, helpful, and courteous to us anytime we're in the school. It's the unity shown between our school district and town organizations that make this community so great, and we are honored to be part of it with you. This came from the EMW Football and Cheerleading Executive Board, Jay Macaluso, President, Andy Jacobs, Vice President, Brianne Whitmire, Secretary, and Mike Faulkner, the Treasurer. And so they are thanking the board, and they're thanking us, but I know all the organizations, it's really, we're here for the kids. These are Iroquois students coming back and using it for these organizations. But I'd also like to express great thanks back to them for the hours and hours of the volunteer parents put in there, so the students, our students, their children can have these experiences for the multitude of different sports and activities they provide. So thank you for opening the schools to them to the extent we can, and in years that without COVID, even the greater extent. And the last thing I have is the Unified Polar Plunge. Mr. Lauber went there. They're much braver than I am to jump into Lake Erie. What's that?
I said there's a lot of crazy people.
They're brave. Thank you to everyone, and they helped us make a donation to Special Olympics in New York. $13,000. They won the Cool School Challenge again. We are the first school team in New York State history to raise over $10,000. Huge congratulations.
Absolutely, congratulations.
You know,
that's awesome.
Just the whole organization, Mr. Lauber is leading it, but just the participation and the students enjoying it going in there. They had two standouts, Bradley and Claire. They won scholarships and were named top student fundraisers. And we did have one of our board members attend this year. I know you probably can't see the pictures at home. I'll pass them around for the board to see. And so congratulations to Heather Jacobs, because you do look cold and wet in this picture. So congratulations and thank you for all that and for the student participation. Smiles to everyone. And that's all I have today.
All right, thank you. And that brings us to recognition of guests on agenda items only. I'd first like to recognize, Michelle, I'll let you read Lisa's letter first.
Thanks, Jane.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that the Polar Plunge, I went and observed, and it was fantastic. And those kids were freezing, and it was very moving. Iroquois got a great recognition for all the money. So, and seeing Heather go into the water like that was admirable. Like,
But not
Hey.
inspiring enough to make you jump in with her, huh?
no, I was like,
Well, I was going to say, Michelle, you know, the first act of participating is attending. So next year,
Next year, we expect you to go in.
I will tell you that when I get cold, I walk a lot faster. So, but all the kids they were soaking wet and freezing, and I was walking faster than them. Like, it was so bad. Okay, so I'm going to read this letter, and there was a lot of confusion, and I think that is just another indication of why we need communication to be at the top of our priority. So this is from one of the communication task force members. She asked me to read this statement. My name is Lisa, and I'm a parent of 3 children in the Iroquois district. I served on the communication task force and felt this was an important role in serving our students, teachers, faculty, parents, and community members. If there's one thing that our district could use improvement in, it's communication. It was a pleasure to serve with other members of this school and outside community. We put a lot of time, thought, and effort into the work on this part of the plan, as did other members for the other 2 task forces and the core team. One of the strategic intents we asked to be considered included in the plan, that keeps being referred to from the district as a living, breathing document, is to hire a communications manager. This could be a crucial part to the success of our district from here on out. There have been recent instances in which a communication manager for our district would have been helpful. The issue with the dress code at the high school, the incident at the middle school just yesterday when a student made a threat to the school, and there were rumors, and for more everyday items. You can ask PTO members, room parents, and the like to spread the word about happenings in our district when even the district's official Facebook page does not even communicate events like this board meeting tonight. You have many resources at your fingertips, and those people eager to assist. Yet it's as if the Board of Education and the district themselves sabotage their own efforts and resources. I feel that the district has already fumbled with the rollout of this important plan for our district. There are already misunderstandings and miscommunications, with no, in parentheses, publicly acknowledged plan, end parentheses, in place, to my knowledge. The letter from the district that was released to the public and the board was not even signed, as per the previous conversation we had at the work session. This was passed to the board to continue and move forward. The letter went out to the public. Now what? In short, I'm disappointed that at the November board meeting, it was declared that the core team needed to meet to decide on the addition of the strategic intents. While I understand there is a process, I do not understand how the core team has to approve and discuss these intents when there is no longer a core team, and this was handed to the board. And as stated by Doug in the most recent news article, there are no meetings scheduled. So what happens now? The news article stated that over $30,000 was spent on the firm to assist with this plan. There was an excitement in the air about the strategic plan's completion and rollout. To not keep the momentum going is a disservice to students, staff, and taxpayers. And honestly, this incident alone is an insult to everyone who worked on this and those who have been trying to share the news of this plan with the community. Thank you for your time and your willingness to listen to what I have to say.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes,
Thank you for reading it, Michelle.
you're very welcome.
And now I would like to recognize Amy Kotecki, who would like to speak about COVID testing requirements.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Amy Kotecki. I've been a teacher here at Iroquois for 21 years. Thank you, Mr. Schofield and the board, for listening to me tonight. And I'm here to talk about the testing requirements. And I'm going to start by saying, as we are learning more daily about the COVID cases in our area, throughout the country and the world, it is becoming increasingly difficult to understand why I am subject to discriminatory testing when the vaccinated are not. What is the why behind the testing requirement? The countries with the highest vaccination rates are reporting the highest amount of COVID cases. Hospitals around the world are showing that a majority of the inpatient beds are filled with vaccinated. COVID cases are only a small percentage of reasons for hospitalization. A recent study from the UK showed that 86% of hospitalizations and death related to COVID are from people who are vaccinated. With the increased evidence that vaccine isn't working to prevent contraction, transmission, hospitalization, or death, I question as to why everyone at Iroquois, everyone doesn't have to be tested. If we are truly concerned with health and safety, then this would seem to be the only thing that makes sense, and I've said this before. Test everyone or test no one. I'm going to provide a quick summary of an article with citations that my colleague Lauren Fox sent to each of you today. An article on the Lancet Regional Health stated and highlighted that high COVID-19 vaccination rates have not reduced transmission of SARS-CoV-2. Another paper out of the UK shows that fully vaccinated individuals with breakthrough infections have peak viral loads similar to the unvaccinated, and that fully vaccinated individuals can efficiently transmit infection. In the UK report, it shows that among citizens 60 years or older, fully vaccinated accounted for 89.7% of SARS-CoV-2 cases versus 3.4% among the unvaccinated. The CDC identifies 4 of the top 5 counties with the highest percentage of fully vaccinated population, 84 to 99%, as high transmission counties. The data also suggests the breakthrough cases of fully vaccinated individuals are going to be the norm with the Omicron variant. It appears to be grossly negligent to ignore the vaccinated population as a possible and relevant source of transmission when deciding about public health control measures. Every teacher and staff member in the district knows somebody that has tested positive despite being fully vaccinated. If you think testing only unvaccinated people is providing any safety, you're mistaken. Scientific data shows vaccinated people carry and transmit SARS-CoV-2. The only way to mitigate a virus will be here forever in many mutated forms is to take care of your own personal health through lifestyle choices, proper nutrition, and healthy, high-quality supplements. Testing individuals for COVID is not going to implement these needed measures. We should be doing these things for our health as preventative measures on our own. I do quite a lot to stay healthy, and I don't know if I feel safe knowing people who are vaccinated don't need to test and can be in school spreading the virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item 9, discussion on agenda items 10.2 through 10.5.8. Do we have anything we need to discuss? Point out, talk about.
I would definitely like to, we do have one retirement, William Smith, and, you know, I've been here for well over a decade, and he's been over here a lot longer than that, and I've always really enjoyed his company. I see him almost every night, and he's a little bit of a fixture here, so congratulations to him on his retirement.
Great.
Is it regarding an agenda item? You didn't fill out a form. I mean, there's another section at the end of the meeting where you can be addressed, that you can address the board if you don't mind waiting. Okay, all right. Anything else to discuss?
And just want to get to, I think there were, there's only one donation, but thank you to TOPS for that donation for the program at Wales. So thank you, two from TOPS,
Two.
Wales and middle school. So thank you for both of those.
Very good.
Didn't we also have a donation of a CNC router?
We did have a CNC, and that was from our new tech teacher that he donated that in for the program. It was something he had at his house. Thank you for that, reminding me.
Okay.
I have a question about the change orders.
Yes, item
10.5.
10.5.1.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had asked previously about the borings that were taken, and I was wondering where they were taken. I mean, it's a pretty big area to miss something like this.
Went back, reviewed that, and borings would not show this type of unsuitable soils, because the borings show I talked about this last month, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. They show the striation, the layers, as they go down, looking where water tables are and things like that. They don't show how they combine over a horizontal surface, because it's how it all fits together. So it would be like, what happened with unsuitable soils is how they're combined together. It makes it like a sponge and wavy when they go across it. So therefore, as the heaving would happen, it would crack the structure above it. And so therefore, it would not, the only way to discover these is actually to dig down into it and explore what's there. Now, with saying that, I would always get scared if someone's doing work in my house and they could say, ooh, I found something bad, so therefore it's going to cost you more. And that's where we have a geologist with a survey, an independent group that does not make any more money on this. We pay them a flat fee. They go in, they look at the ground, and they say yes, whether it's good or not, and then they work with our construction manager that also review it, that we hired, to make sure that this work is actually required and necessary.
And then the amount of money that this change order gives is actually already built into the project. This is not additional money.
Correct, and it's not built in as, ooh, for unsuitable soils. It's built in under construction contingency for when you find things. So it's the same thing of looking at walls or floors. One great example of things that are undiscovered is asbestos. So you go to a wall, you start taking it apart, and then you find these black circles behind it, which are asbestos pucks, that you would think the district would know where all the asbestos is in it, because we have to do reports on it, but then it's undiscoverable because it's covered up.
Didn't we have something similar to when we did the facade of the high school, when they started pulling that off the roof?
Oh, yeah, there
It was all
something.
just broken block that they used.
Yeah, there was something with the past construction that they
Right,
thought was in there.
exactly,
and
that
wasn't
allowed
in
for
there.
a lot of
Yep.
air passage
Yeah,
through the walls.
and then we had one too with a beam where they were repointing it, and the beam under it had actually started to rust and expanded. But I think Michelle's question is a great one, because if we're doing these bore samples and looking in there, you're looking at the soil. Why aren't you seeing that, you know, how bumpy it is as it goes across? And that's where I went back, you know, because I had got that question before and actually asked it and did the research into it so I would understand. And I didn't do it from the groups that were doing the work. I actually went to outside other parties to make sure that all the answers jived with each other. And we're doing it all as a group, because, you know, there's certain limits of what we go to the board that we have to, but I thought because of the total, this should all come as one group. John concurred with it, and that's why you're seeing it all at once for it.
So what is our contingency budget?
I want to say it was $800,000. Don't quote me for exactly on that, but it's pretty close to that.
Yeah, I think it will, I thought it was like 10% of the contract.
I remember a dollar figure. I can
Yeah.
put that out in a Friday memo to the board of what it is exactly. It's back in my office that I could actually look at a document that's sitting over on my one shelf. But I will get that out in the Friday message.
Yeah.
And it'll be a total, I'm gonna give it out, this is a total dollar amount of construction contingency.
And I know we had spoken about the contingency before we even put it out, you know,
Yeah.
for vote.
Yeah, and 10% isn't outrageous for a contingent.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, great, it's a question that I would ask. I kind of wondered that too. I think I actually asked the people across the road. While I was over there checking, I was a little frustrated. I'm like, well, you did these borings, why couldn't you find it? So I was going right along that same path.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, can I have a motion? Is there a request to withdraw a specific item from the agenda? No. Okay, is there a request to add a specific item to the agenda? No. Okay, can I have a request to approve the consensus agenda items 10.2 through 10.5.8?
So moved.
Second, Louise.
Thank you, Louise. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. And that brings us to our recognition of guests on any item. So Melissa DeJoseph, please come now. And thank you for waiting.
And as she walks up, I'd like to thank the board for giving her the object to speak, because really, just for anyone listening at home, we really like these ahead of time so we can check on residency requirements and everything else. But I know who you are, so I know you live in the district, because I see you quite often with your children here, so thank you.
Okay, well, I thank all of you for
Is her
listening.
microphone on? Okay.
Okay, so, first of all, I was just thinking, you know, how Hochul is always saying she wants to send her vaccine van out to schools. I was just wondering if she ever sent it here, would you give us a week notice?
I shouldn't really answer these, sorry, but if the van did come here, I would definitely, I apologize to the board for answering, but that is something I have said previously. I apologize for answering, because I know I don't answer other people.
Okay. And then, so all these people are going to the hospitals and everything, but if you really look into it and not listen to the news, there's actually 78% of the people in the hospital are fully vaxxed. There is 17 that are partially, which means only 5% is not. And for all the people who are on ventilators, they get a whole bunch of money, like $38,000 per person who goes on a ventilator. It's just, it's awful. So, but, and for making the kids wear the masks and everything, there's a 99.973% chance that they're going to be okay, which is almost 100%. That's up to 19 years old. After that, it goes down just a smidgen. So if you truly look into your research and not listen to the news, you'll find a lot out. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we need an executive session? Nope. Okay. Then that brings us to 13, the adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
No.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Second, Louise.
Or we could discuss to dismissal. Or
Chuck is very happy now. We're having a discussion during adjournment.
Oh my God, Michelle.
I'm so sorry.
No, he's been dreaming of this
No,
day.
I love it. Yeah, he's excited.
It's very important.
It is very important, and you know what, it might be able to wait until next meeting. But there was a board discussion item that I wanted to ask, because I would like everybody to, the board, like, we've been getting a lot of anonymous letters lately, and we've always had a discussion, or not a discussion, but we've always kind of said, you know, if it's an anonymous letter, we don't respond. So I'm just curious if we're gonna like change that or what. And we don't have to discuss it now. I just something to think about.
Well, I can tell you that every once in a while, when one of the anonymous emails come in, I do suggest that they contact their local state legislators. I give them that information, so they have the like Senator Gallivan's email address and office address, so they can send a letter. But other than that, I'm not responding in any other kind of detail.
Okay, I think we should all be on the same page about that, you know? Right?
Yeah, I wrote it down.
people.
I wrote it down so it can be a discussion or board
Okay.
discussion next month.
Next time? Yep.
And you
Sounds good.
reminded me if from Erie County School Boards, you could send me the URL of all those.
Yeah, we are definitely, that is in play. We are making out little business cards that will be
Yep.
handed out. We're trying to create posters that will, that can be displayed at the start of a board meeting. And we do have a page for every single district on our website that links people to their legislators for that particular school district. So that's going to be rolled out in January.
Rolled out in January?
I believe it's in January.
So I'll keep waiting.
But that was
Jumping on it.
when you say our website, you mean the Erie County?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She says Erie County, and I want it for the Iroquois.
Right, that, I think that's
Erie County
something that's ours.
Association.
Yep.
Each school district that has membership in Erie County Association of School Boards has a district page on the Erie County Association of School Boards website. So there is an Iroquois page on that website that allows people to be able to look and see who their legislators are and all the contact information.
Do we have a link for that on our site, on the Iroquois School District?
I just wrote it down to see if we
Yeah.
do have one there,
That would
actually.
be
Yeah.
up to our tech people to, determine if there should be a mutual link. That would be fine, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we do have a motion for adjournment. We did get a second from Mr. Barry, so all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries, and we are adjourned.
And congratulations, Chuck, for getting your discussion during.
That was awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciated that.
Yep, anytime.
You got.
Bye, everybody. We miss you. All right.